It's time to have your say, and welcome back to the Q&A Ask SCW. We'll be answering your questions on WWE, AEW, and much, much more straight after this. Are AEW relying too heavily on former WWE superstars? Should a top AEW star turn heel? Is Cesaro about to return to WWE, and if so, what will he be doing? Am I still interested in seeing Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey? What is next for Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins after Hell in the Cell? I'll be kicking things off with what is the greatest shoot promo on a live show in wrestling history. All those topics and much, much more on this episode, so please like, share, and subscribe if this is the place for you. If you'd like to be involved in the next episode, including a shout out, then drop a question in the comment section here on YouTube, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All should come on your screen right about now. Make sure to leave the hashtag AskSCW with your question. But without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week. And it comes from Chat, Grapple, and Cheap Pops podcast. Greatest shoot promo on a live show. Very appropriate question after this past week. MJF on AEW Dynamite. Wow, what a fantastic worked shoot promo. Digging out the fans, digging out the ex-WWE guys that have been signed by AEW, digging out the roster in general, wanting to take his spot, and of course, digging out Tony Khan, saying he doesn't want to be here anymore, saying the time for negotiation and reconciliation is done. Fire me, you Mark, fire me. Those impassionate words there where MJF made you feel to the point as well when he said, look, you all said I couldn't wrestle, you just want to hear me talk right, but I can do things that the rest of that locker room can't make you do. That's when they do all the flips, that's when they do all these spectacle moves. He doesn't need to do that, and he proved the point as well because people were cheering him on his side. Even at other times they were booing him as well. He had everyone in the palm of his hand doing exactly what he wanted them to do. But is it the greatest shoot on live TV? I can tell you there are quite a few that spring to mind. One that's very similar to MJF's was Eddie Guerrero back on WCW Nitro back in 1998, saying he didn't want to work for WCW anymore. Of course, who remembers the infamous Austin 316 said, I just whooped your ass, and Doc Hendricks' face as well when that come out of his mouth after winning King of the Ring. And of course, CM Punk, the pipe bomb. People at the time not knowing if that was legit, if it was real, if it was a work. Everyone was in the palm of CM Punk's hand. And to be fair, a lot of people that were out of wrestling or, on the cusp of leaving wrestling were all sucked back in the moment CM Punk did that. For me, that is going to be my answer for you because there have been some great ones over the years where we've been blurred the lines of what is real and what is not. And I think MJF is in the top 5 of what we've just seen this past week, but it's almost like replicating what we've seen with the pipe bomb previously. And I think with everything going on, we know it's a work shoot here at this point. It seems to be collectively put into storyline because if there was a real shoot element and MJF didn't want to be a part of everything and was, looking to get on a plane last weekend. He's come back now and he's on TV and he's been given a live mic to do all the stuff he's been done. Clearly, for me, a lot of that has been cleared by Tony Khan. You just wouldn't get through that. And of course, you can't replicate what you've seen with a pipe bomb 10 years ago when you kind of had that question of, is it real, is it not? And of course, everything that Punk was doing at the time, it was fresh, it was new, it was exciting. And to be fair, I don't think any other superstar could have done what MJF did this week. He really is at a level on his own when it comes to the microphone in the modern day. He's definitely the best out there. I think any other superstar in this situation would have struggled to get it over the way he's done. Everyone's talking about it, everyone is hyped about it. But as I say, for me, going back to a personal standpoint, I feel elements of this have been done before, and I think when it goes back to CM Punk, I was one of those fans back in 2011 watching out of habit, was sort of umming and ahhing, should I still continue watching Monday Night Raw on a weekly basis? And then that happened. We got the Summer of Punk, the 434-day reign as champion. For me, I was hooked back in, and look, I'm still here today, and now I'm recording YouTube videos. So for me, I'm going to go with CM Punk's pipe bomb, but I'm interested to know what everyone else thinks in the comments below, and where you would rank MJF after this past week, because let's be fair, whether it's the best or not the best in your opinion, no one can argue it was damn good. Bama Dave now, the next question here on Ask SCW, asking, one of the big AEW criticisms right now is that they're relying too much on former WWE top stars like Punk, Bryan, Mox, Cole, Tony Storm or Ruby Soho, and not focusing enough on the OG AEW stars like Lance Archer, Private Party, Pac, Anna Jay and Penelope Ford. What are your thoughts? strap yourselves in. I've got a fair bit to say on this topic. What a question this one is, and a loaded one as well. Do you know what? To a certain degree, I agree with this statement. You know, AEW is relying more on former ex-WWE guys now, but some of those are top stars, and they are coming into the company, and you'd be silly not to push them, right? You'd be silly not to, you know, push CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, Tony Storm, and so you're talking about some of the best talents in the world there. And some of the ones arguably that you've mentioned, I'm going to sound a bit harsh here, but Lance Archer has been booked horribly for me in AEW. I'm not invested in the character whatsoever. Private Party, they've been in the throwaway HFO gimmick with Matt Hardy, an ex-WWE guy, which hasn't connected me for such a long time. Penelope Ford is good, but she's just not at the level, as we mentioned, over Tony Storm or Ruby Soho, and neither is Anna Jay at this stage. But here is where I'd probably give a bit of a counter argument for you right now. Let's look at some of the champions in AEW, shall we, over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. We've just come off now. Yes, CM Punk is your current AEW World Champion. Of course, last week, this argument may have had a little bit more weight in goal, but Hangman Adam Page was your champion for 6 months, and before that, Kenny Omega for nearly a full calendar year. Why don't we look at the Women's Championship division right now? We've got Thunder Rosa as your champion. Arguably, not being booked that strong, perhaps not getting enough TV time compared to some of the ex-WWE superstars, but of course, before that, the Doctor, Britt Baker, DMD, also winning the Owen as well, just recently at Double or Nothing. She's not, well, she's had appearances in WWE, but she's not renowned as being an ex-WWE talent. But of course, you look at some of the other areas of the card as well, like the Tag Team Championships is currently AEW Originals, if you want, with Jurassic Express. So it is sort of covered in a lot of the directions. Scorpio Sky, the TNT champion. But here's my other argument I'm going to throw into this, which I think, you know, Bama, you're from my era of wrestling as well, from where we started, the Monday Night Wars, the WWEs and WCWs of this world. You know, you look at some of the top guys from both during the Monday Night War. Stone Cold Steve Austin was stunning Steve Austin in WCW for many years, went to ECW for a cup of coffee, then went to WWE as the Ringmaster, then later repackaged as Stone Cold, went on to become the top star. Triple H as well had been in WCW before WWE. Yes, we can go with The Rock and Taker had not been a part of WCW, but you look at them with Mankind being another one there. Go on WCW side, Hollywood Hogan, Hulk Hogan, the 80s generation of what WWE was built on back in the 80s was their top star. Yes, they had the likes of Ric Flair, who had jumped over as well to WWE at some point. Yes, they had Sting that didn't jump over, but then you go with the likes of, you know, Randy Savage, you go with Scott Hall, you go with Kevin Nash. Yes, arguably started in WCW, but made their name in WWE before going back. I think what I'm trying to say here in the best possible way is that everyone went backwards and forwards in different areas, and some were treated top stars in one company, some not in the other, some went backwards and forwards. It was all about the cream always rises to the top. The best talents are the ones that are eventually going to get over. And in a commonplace as well with wrestling, you can use it with any form of work or whatever you are, whether you work in a supermarket, you work in a shop, you're an electrician or whatever. There are different companies all over the place, and someone's going to work with one, and if that's their thing that they want to continue to work with, they may go to work with another one at one point, you know, and if they may get in a raise depending on where they go, or maybe you know, a higher promotion to what they were in somewhere else. It comes down to different elements of what it is, and for me personally, these are all wrestlers at the end of the day. It doesn't matter where they were before for me. If they're the right people for the positions, for the job to be pushed, then I don't see a problem with it personally. I look at AEW and I see that a lot of the champions are AEW Originals if you want. And, you know, you mentioned Jon Moxley in amongst there with the WWE. He came in at the first Double or Nothing and was champion for a long time. Chris Jericho, not one mentioned there, but of course has been in WWE for years, you know, and was their first AEW World Champion. But at the time, it was very smart booking to do so. I would even argue at this point with CM Punk before the injury was the right decision right now to give an ex-WWE guy that turn at the top, because it just showed for people from the outside casual audience looking in at a time where arguably AEW ratings have had a slight decline, that, oh wait, CM Punk is their world champion. I need to go and check and see what this is all about. And I think that they would have, and perhaps will eventually, get the rub and the benefit from that. But, you know, for people like Bryan Danielson to come in, for example, and not to be pushed to the top, for me, would be criminal. Yes, of course, someone like Lance Archer, many will say, heck of a talent, should have been booked better, but he wasn't being booked very well even before a lot of these talents come in. So for me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. I think that wrestlers at the end of the day do their part. Is Tony Khan relying on bringing in a lot of XW talent from times of people he was beating? Yes, but I think if he thinks that they can improve his product, then why not bring them in? Because like I say, yes, it's a bloated roster, it's a very heavy roster, but the best are going to do very, very well. There are a number of WWE stars who have come in who have not set the world on fire, in my personal opinion. Andrade is going to be one of them I'm going to give a shout to. He's been there a year this weekend. What's he done? Yeah, not a lot. He hasn't done a lot either. So it goes both ways here. And of course, I don't think a lot of people are talking about it the other way because Cody is the only one really to have made that jump so far. But hey, look, in the next 2, 3, 4 years, there may be people from AEW that go to WWE side. MJF being the hot topic right now. But let's say a Jade Cargill, a Wardlow goes over there, Ethan Page, and they all get pushed. All meant to be rumored that WWE interesting, by the way. If they all get pushed and get pushed to the top, will everyone be saying, oh, they're just pushing AEW guys? I'm not sure. It's just the nature of how it is, but it's a very fascinating topic. I'm glad this question has been asked. A big thank you to Banner Dave. But until AEW bring in a WWE mid-carder, make them world champion on night 1, so for example, someone like an Ezekiel or someone like that, or an Angel Garza, like TNA have done in the past with some of the mid-carders from WWE, I'm not going to take too much of that on the argument. Like I say, the best gets to the top. And for me, that's just simply how it is, and it's always been that way in professional wrestling. Next question comes from Corey BT asking, what's next for Hangman Adam Page? Stay babyface to eventually reunite with Kenny and the Bucks, or turn heel by snapping on everybody? Well, he could become your AEW Interim World Champion. That certainly is a possibility, of course. I'm not sure if he's going to be a part of the Battle Royal this upcoming Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, but in my opinion, he certainly should be. The Millennial Cowboy, as we say, was very emotional. Once again, of course, in that title defense against CM Punk, was falling victim of the mind games. It was going back almost to that Hangman Page that we knew that went on that long journey to become world champion. It's almost that self-doubt for the first time. Could he put CM Punk away? And of course, he had the championship in hand, threw it to the side, and in the end, he might have done the wrong thing. He lost the championship, and of course, well, now Punk is out on the shelf for the time being. Who will be the person to step up? If Hangman Page is going to be that guy, he needs to go in the Battle Royale. Personally, for me, I would like him to go on and win the AEW World Championship again, because personally, I think that a story could be told in amongst this, because, well, he could have the opportunity to do the same thing once again, and this time he could take the opportunity, hit someone with the championship, and then become the champion. We could get almost like a heel Adam Page going forward, someone that does have self-doubt, but perhaps maybe says, well, look, if I don't believe myself, I'm going to make sure I do whatever it takes to get the job done. It could almost be to a point, like you look at some of the old superstars that we've seen back in the old days. I kind of relate it to like a Bret Hart in '97, where organically you can take what's got everyone to connect with the character so well over the years to then use the same tactics to find it, to tweak it, where you can get everyone to dislike that character. I think that could be really genius if AEW could pull that off. But either way, I like that Hangman Page is going to go back to this emotional story, because it's a reason to be invested in the character. And I think that's something that has been lacking for me personally with him as AEW World Champion. I'd like to have seen that continue. But one thing is for sure, I don't see him reuniting with Kenny and the Bucks, certainly for a while. That's what I would say. I think more than likely he will remain babyface for the time being in AEW. I don't see the turn happening yet, if it is going to happen. But it's something that I'd be interested in seeing, because it was a key moment in that match against CM Punk, and it told a new story of itself, and it can open up so many doors. And I just wonder, maybe Hangman should walk through it and see where it takes him over the next year and a half of his career. Maybe he can become world champion once again, and this time, like I say, he does whatever it takes, and he holds that championship for a long, long time, because at that point, Hangman could be unstoppable. He's already proven he can, defeat the likes of a Kenny Omega, but if he can prove he can put away the likes of a CM Punk, a John Moxley, a Bryan Danielson going forward, man, especially being a heel as well, doing whatever it takes, that's an interesting story that I'm intrigued to see. And you could even go full circle with it when Kenny Omega does eventually return, if they wanted to go down that avenue. Underground Temple, of our next question now. Who should be the one to beat the undefeated streak and dethrone TBS champion Jade Cargill? In Underground Temple's personal opinion and choice, it would be Athena. Very difficult to argue with that choice. Of course, she's hot property coming in, debuting at Double or Nothing. It's been rumoured this match for the longest time now, isn't it? And of course, if you go back to Bama Dave's question earlier on, ex-WWE, potentially could be someone that could come in and take the championship. For me, it's a dream match for a lot of people to see. I think it's going to be awesome when it comes around, but I am going to give you a different answer because I actually still believe that Jade Cargill is going to be undefeated for a very long time. I'm going 3 to perhaps even 6 months more. I'm going all the way to full gear before I believe Jade loses a match in AEW. I still even think the right thing is that she should just, vacate that championship, or arguably try and have all the gold, have the TBS and go for the AEW Women's World Championship, because Jade is that much of a star. But for me, if I'm going to give a name for you, I'm going to go Kris Statlander. And my reasoning for it, well, she poured her heart out on AEW just recently. Of course, AEW original as well, if you want. She was the fan favourite going against Ruby Soho in the semi-final of the Owen Hart Trophy. Of course, she said that she's been in AEW for so long, had nothing to show for it, and she wasn't going to be kept missing out on opportunity. She wasn't even booked for that tournament. I think fans really got inside of it, and have you noticed she's now being a part of this equation with this sort of trios rivalry going on right now. So she's sort of alongside Athena right now. I think Athena could be the first one in line, because if you want the most recognised star, and I think Jade will prevail in that, and I think that if Kris can get the opportunity to have a match further down the line and pick up the victory, again, it puts over these AEW talents further over, and I think that fanfare would be a success story here, because TK, he does listen to fan reaction, sometimes doesn't act on it quick enough in my opinion, but he does do it, and I think personally if he can strike the iron when it's hot, Kris Statlander would be a very good choice to dethrone Jade Cargill and become the next TBS champion. Let's switch things up, shall we now, and go to WWE. Eleanor Wrestling in the house. Would you be interested in seeing Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey one-on-one at some point in the future? Absolutely. And do you know what, for me, the perfect destination is WrestleMania next year. WrestleMania 39 would be perfect to have Becky Lynch against Ronda Rousey. But what I would say is, and I mentioned this in the last question about striking the iron when it's hot, I do think it's a slight missed opportunity by WWE, because I don't think every section of the audience now is as invested in this match anymore as perhaps what they would have been previously. Of course, if you remember back to Survivor Series 2018, when we were going to get the match and then Becky was pulled from it to then get the build to WrestleMania 35, everyone was dying to see that as the singles match. And when we knew that Ronda Rousey would return to WWE, everyone was keen to have that match there and then. But of course, they went a different direction, had the Charlotte Flair feud. Now we've got the Natalya feud that's going to go on, and it feels with the SmackDown roster, Ronda's not losing that championship anytime soon. I think the one thing that goes in the pro, though, to leaving it to WrestleMania 39, Ronda's come back in as a babyface. Becky Lynch did need to close off that rivalry with Bianca Belair. Of course, Becky also being a heel right now, not too long into the big-time Bex gimmick as well. The last time they tried to turn a heel, of course, she became the man and ended up being the top babyface in the entire company, which pushed her to actually get that match with Ronda Rousey in the first place. So I guess in some way it is the right thing. I do think both women need to switch roles as well. Becky will need to go to the babyface side, Ronda will need to go to the heel side. If WWE truly believe that we're going to actually cheer Ronda Rousey over Becky Lynch, they're in for a big mistake. So yeah, I guess WrestleMania 39 is the place for me, and yeah, I'm still keen on seeing it. I just hope there's a good storyline narrative that can connect it together. It's an easy storyline to put together, so WWE surely should put this in place when it comes around to Royal Rumble season next year through to the biggest show of the year, WrestleMania 39. Next question comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo. If rumours are true on Cesaro returning to WWE, what outcome upon returning can be suited for him, and why do you think WWE can be better for him at this time? Money's a big one. I mean, WWE have got the big bucks, and I don't think other companies can still compete with them on that level. Of course, he might have priced himself out of going to other promotions. Even AEW, even though they have money, I don't think perhaps they're willing to go to the big bucks to get someone in that perhaps maybe won't be a big needle mover in their opinion. What could they do with Cesaro if he was to come back? Well, I think for him to go to WWE, the creative direction needs to be better. The last time he re-signed, he had a championship program with Roman Reigns. Of course, it lasted a cup of coffee for about 2 or 3 month push, and then he sort of fell from grace. If assurances are put in place for Cesaro that won't be the case, then I think for me, he certainly would be much needed on WWE TV right now, and particularly on SmackDown, because SmackDown, boy oh boy, is missing some faces, is missing some star power, and is missing a lot, because we're getting rematch after rematch We've got a lot of the big superstars that are not even on the show at the minute. Roman Reigns, of course, now is a part-timer. Sasha and Naomi are not around at the moment either. And they're having to write and bring on stars from Monday Night Raw onto this show. If Cesaro was to come in right now, they could do numerous things with him right now. For me, I think that's an obvious one. If Gunther is going to become your new Intercontinental Champion next week, which I presume he will, why not have that match? Gunther versus Cesaro at SummerSlam, or Money in the Bank, or a program for 2 or 3 months. Dream match all over. It was in the UK, a part of their UK tour they were doing last year. Did we get to see any of it? No, we didn't. And was Twitter mouth-watering at the idea of that match? Yes, it was. I think that would be something that would entice Cesaro to come back in to go for the Intercontinental Championship. A couple of other things they could do. The Brawling Brutes could be an idea. Perhaps something with Sheamus once again. They were the bar after all. And of course, being European as well could go into the Fight Club. I think could suit pretty well in that gimmick if they wanted to do it. Or perhaps even as another long shot. And perhaps could be my favourite of the lot. Maybe not. Maybe my second favourite of the lot. I want the match with Gunther, I'm not going to lie to you. But certainly, he could be a client of somebody that's looking to bring someone in next week. Max Dupree, with the male model situation can go on. Cesaro has done the suit gimmick before. He could do it easily again. I think would be suitable, would be a credible person that could come in if Max Dupree is looking to have a serious faction on SmackDown. Of course, perhaps it could be face. Maybe it could be Mansoor. Would be fine, I guess, in its own right, but it's a lower card act then at that point. If LA Knight was to actually be a mouthpiece for someone that could get to the next level and an in-ring talent like Cesaro, we're talking big here. Maybe Cesaro could get to the next level in WWE because, in my opinion, the thing that's holding back is the promo. What's the strength of LA Knight or Max Dupree? It is the promo. So there are a lot of things that could really work for that partnership. So for me, a part of me really hopes that happens, but I still want the match with Gunther as well. Maybe we could start with Gunther and we could move on to the male models with Max Dupree afterwards. Anthony New with our next question now. What do you think is next for Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins once their feud is over? Money in the Bank, I think, is the next destination for these guys, and being brutally honest. But for feuds for you, Cody Rhodes, I'll start off with. I think a natural progression would be Kevin Owens going into SummerSlam. I think that would be a fun feud between these two. We don't really have the dynamic with Seth and KO as of late. They seem to have gone their own separate directions, but I definitely could see Kevin Owens being a worthy challenger for Cody, and I think that's why they're going to wrap up the Ezekiel feud probably at Hell in a Cell. Seth Rollins, on the other hand, I can see potentially going against Bobby Lashley, and it makes a lot of sense as well. They're going to wrap up, hopefully wrap up the Lashley almost an MVP feud, and Lashley, to be fair, should be going after Seth Rollins. He should really, because Seth cost him the championship back at Elimination Chamber. Did the sort of buckle bomb or the power bomb to Theory through the glass of the cage, the pod that he was in, and of course that took Lashley out of the match. So personally, for me, that would be something that would make a lot of sense, and would be a match I really would like to see at SummerSlam as well. So those have been my two choices: KO for Cody and Bobby Lashley for Seth freaking Rollins. Non-stop wrestling chat of our next question now. Big shout out as well to NWC Show joining me for SCW Rewind. Check out our review of Armageddon 2000 that's on the channel for you right now. But going to his question, he asks, I'm making a video on this question, so I thought I'd ask you, Undertaker or Stone Cold Steve Austin, who do you like better? Such a tough question. Two of the greatest of all time here. Let's try and break it down here to try and give an answer for you. I mean, Undertaker, longevity, over 30 years, a gimmick as well that should have arguably never worked in a company, and also put on some of the greatest matches, some of my favourite matches as well of all time, talking about the end of an era Hell in a Cell match against Triple H back at WrestleMania 28, the Hell in a Cell match with Mankind, of course, throwing him off the cell at King of the Ring 1998, and of course the classic with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Let's flip things over to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Arguably the biggest boom period in wrestling history was down to Steve Austin, the highest, buy rates for pay-per-views, popularity. Still to this day, when you hear the glass shatter, an arena, a stadium will erupt for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, beer drinking, of course, beating up Vince McMahon every week, just literally was a character that everyone wanted to be involved with, and had, of course, some of the most important rivalries as well, arguably as well with the greatest WrestleMania of all time, main evented by Stone Cold Steve Austin, going against The Rock. It's very difficult indeed to pick a favourite between these two, but personally for me, if I'm gonna pick one, I guess as who I like better, I guess I'm going to go for Stone Cold Steve Austin, just because of the boom period, the memories of the Attitude Era and stuff like that. Yes, Taker probably has some of my more favourite matches of all time, but sometimes it is all about the story. It's about the character, and I still do truly believe that Austin and McMahon is the greatest story that's ever been told in WWE or wrestling, period. I don't think it can ever be recreated the way that it was done. The carnage each and every week, the entertainment factor that Steve Austin could even give for that short few years, you know, I think just about outweighs everything that has been done since in the wrestling ring from anybody, including The Undertaker, despite the fact having what can only be described as a phenomenal, incredible 30-year career. Like I said, he put bangers on after banger over them 30 years as well. It's such a difficult question. You're so unfair for asking that. But I tell you what, yeah, I'm going to just put my neck out and say Stone Cold Steve Austin. And why not help Barry out with this question as well and drop in your opinion in the comments below. Austin or Undertaker? Who do you like better? Last question this week coming from Noob and Co. Since coming back to WWE, fans don't see any change in Asuka's character. Do you think that Asuka's current character is getting stale? And what are her plans for a return to WWE? Personally, for me, looking at it, I feel like the live audience seems to be quite happy with Asuka on a weekly basis since her return to WWE. And obviously, I can't speak for everybody, but what I can see from it, I'm really enjoying the feud with Becky Lynch. Now, I think for me, they're good of how they brought up the past with the fact of how, you know, Asuka became Raw Women's Champion through Becky Lynch and how, you know, everything's sort of changed since over the last couple of years. I like the story these two have told. It's a shame that they've had to do 2 throwaway matches on Monday Night Raw, but of course, plans and cards subject to change of the events that happened during the last month that probably made that happen. But I do think they'll get a big rubber match at a big pay-per-view. I think that it will be SummerSlam, then they'll have the blow-off match as well. I think both will probably be in Money in the Bank next month. But for me personally, with Asuka and her character, I don't think tweaks are necessarily needed at this moment. I think that the comeback has been good. It's been successful as it's been. But of course, I have said previously, I wouldn't mind seeing a heel Asuka. I like a dominant Asuka. I mean, the happy-go-lucky dancing Asuka, you know, it will only go so far. And then I think there is a potential where it could maybe become stale, or perhaps maybe when we've no longer got the feud with Becky Lynch. Is the direction there? Is there another story for her to progress to? If she wins the feud, maybe she goes into another championship program. Maybe she's, by the time you're watching this, maybe she's already the Raw Women's Champion. I'm recording this on the day of Hell in a Cell. We don't know how it's going to play out at the time of recording. I have predicted Bianca Belair will win that match, but it's not a guarantee. Everything can change overnight. But of course, you know, if Asuka is treated like an important superstar on the Raw brand, as she should be, then I don't think it's an issue. But of course, if she's going to fall down the pecking order, then certainly it would be interesting to see perhaps a tweak of that character. I still always think a heel dynamic would be quite interesting. You know, seeing the green mist and stuff like that, I think is more of a heel tactic than a babyface tactic. More like the Kana persona would be quite cool. Or even just someone that's getting a lot of wins under her belt. Maybe she beats Becky Lynch and she gets a bit arrogant again because no one's ready for Asuka, and she just says, I can beat everybody as and when, but not doing it in a confidence way where fans can be on side. Maybe it's more on a, you know, more of a cocky, arrogant heel kind of way where people can start to turn on her. That could be quite an interesting way to see it go down as well. But for me, is it stale at this moment? She was off TV for such a long time, so definitely not at this particular moment. How will it be in a few months' time? That's another question in itself. And I think it all depends how the direction will be after the Becky Lynch feud, because right now that feud for me, it's ticking a lot of the boxes. But that's all the time we've got for this week on Ask SCW. Thank you so much for everyone for your questions as well. Some fantastic people there in the wrestling community and some fantastic questions as well. It was a lot of fun answering all of those. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like it, share with a friend as well, let them know SCW is here. Subscribe to the channel if it's your first time watching, and of course drop a comment in the comments below. I look forward to interacting with you on any of the topics that have been discussed in this episode. Of course as well, you can leave a hashtag AskSCW with a question if you want to be involved in the next episode as well. But that's all for me. Thank you so much for everybody watching. Why not check out some of the videos on the side of the screen right now. All the best, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for watching SCW here on YouTube. Enjoy the rest of your day.